It's not going all that well. But I will start by introducing a couple of people who can raise the conversation. Hopefully, Chris Sims, Executive Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Association, BC, and Michelle Ferrari, former Conservative MP in Peterborough. And anything to add to your title? I probably should know this.
Who, me, Michelle?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you can add all kinds of things. How long do you have? Yeah. So I'm doing some consulting, actually. I'll have a big announcement in September about that. So right now, you can call me whatever you want, Alex.
All right. We'll call you the C word for now, the consultant. There you go. All right. Let's talk a little bit about, Doug Ford was out there. He's asked a lot about the fire. We were talking, listening for questions, see what he would say. And he was asked about housing. I mean, he made a promise to get 1.5 million homes built in Ontario by 2030-ish, 2031. But the bottom line is the numbers don't add up. In fact, housing starts, which means actual shovels go in the ground, is nowhere near what we want it to be. It's like in the 90s, what we were talking about in the 90s. Like for us to get anywhere close to what we are to build to meet this goal, we would have to build 125,000 homes last year, another 150,000 this year, 175,000 next year. And all we got built in 2024 is 94,700 homes. Let me kick this one off with you, Michelle, because, again, all the politicians, including at the federal level, housing became such a big promise and a big issue. But all it is right now are words. There's no actual solution other than the fact that things are too expensive for developers to buy. And the bottom line is it's still too hard to get around the bureaucracy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Alex. And it just feels like Groundhog Day, right? I feel like we have the same conversation over and over and over again. And then we have people and politicians that are like, we're going to do this and we're going to set these targets. And it's like, that's nice. Pie in the sky, hopes and dreams. And, I think if there's one lesson to learn, it's like under promise, over deliver. But just for context of why this is not going to be attainable. In Peterborough alone, the development charges, before you even put a shovel in the ground, Alex, $70,953.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. Like, these development fees are absolutely outrageous for the home buyer and for the developer. Then you have this massive gap in infrastructure, right? So all of this old infrastructure has to be redone. We're not innovating at a pace that we should be in terms of finding new solutions for this. But I think one of the biggest things that people need to appreciate is how much money government is taking in the bureaucracy before a house is even built. And it's astronomical. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and something that Chris Sims can, extend upon, given you are, you dig into all the numbers as far as the taxes that we paid. But I would, talk about some of the development fees. I mean, it's like in a place like Toronto, it is astronomical. It's $150,000, $200,000 to get these development fees paid. But to making it more affordable, even, Chris, I mean, you got the provincial here in Ontario, the provincial land transfer tax, and then you got to pay a Toronto transport tax. I mean, they've just made buying a house impossible. And the things that the government could do, like lowering those taxes, they just don't do.
Yes, exactly. I was going to hit exactly upon the land transfer taxes because I don't think they're as high in Ontario yet. But I just, fled to British Columbia because of the costs and the big crazy government being so bossy. I'm in Alberta now. And in British Columbia, their land transfer tax is like a revenue stream for the government. Yep. They were taking in more than they were in the carbon tax. Like, it was mind-blowing. So, yeah, you're absolutely right, both of you ladies. They need to zero in on that. They need to say, you know what, these taxes are gone, these fees are gone, you do your basic home inspection to make sure it's environmentally sound and nobody's going to get killed building it, and then you build the bloody thing.
Well, bottom line is, no matter how much Trump is driving the premier nuts, sort of like to your point and our point in the last segment, there are things that we could actually do here in our country that we aren't doing.
Yes, exactly. And Doug Ford used the Donald Trump boogeyman successfully during his re-election campaign, and this has given him the ability to distract the media and ignore the fact that they are spiraling into debt. They just gave themselves a huge pay hike, and they still aren't getting deals done. Like, where is Doug Ford telling Mark Carney no industrial carbon tax? Mm-hmm. Where is he? I'm not kidding. Mm-hmm. This whole best friend thing, he's like Santa Claus. No, your workers in Hamilton said that the industrial carbon tax is going to decimate our industry, that it will lay everybody off and they'll all move to the United States. We've heard nothing out of Doug Ford about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, the things that could do, instead of letting Trump get to him, Michelle, it's like, okay, we can lower corporate tax rates here, right? We can try to make it more attractive for companies to invest here and, reduce some of the costs in that, or I don't know, get an interprovincial trade deal done. And again, we don't get this. And yet the polling for Carney's fine because he says the right things and has the right tone. And meanwhile, you got the premier shaking in his boots and he can't even hide his emotion.
Yeah, I think Chris has hit a very interesting point, right? And I think, the person in charge is only as good as their opposition, right? And I don't feel like Doug has really had anybody to hold his feet to the fire. And I think Doug Ford will be historically one of the most likable people in history. And he plays on something that I think, good for him because he gets to get away with a lot, but he's likable. He phones people back and people are like, well, Doug's a nice guy. But, I think, and Canadians and Ontarians have to take a little bit of ownership for this, where we are like, oh, well, they said sorry. They're going to try harder. Yeah. And, and Justin Trudeau was the king of this until really the federal Conservatives came onto the playing field and said, hey, hang on a second. Does anybody actually recognize that the whole reason your cost of living is out of control and you can't afford even butter, a house, crime, immigration, all of these issues, our resources aren't being developed, is because of the policies of these people. Yeah. And that's where I think people have to make that link. Just because somebody's likable and they seem like a nice guy and they say sorry, it's not the right approach.
Yeah, it's not about popularity. It's got to be about policy. And the more people learn the policy, the better off we are. But I'm not going to expect any of that. Hamilton's mayor, Andrea Horwath, is making news because she directed a billboard with a message discussing gender and children has to be removed. And she issued a statement saying, quote, "My office was made aware of a transphobic ad on a billboard along the Lincoln-Alexander Parkway. And the billboard is not city-owned. It sits on city-leased space, and city advertising rules were not followed. We have directed Astral Media to remove it and put stronger safeguards in place." And Chris, I'm like, gosh, it must be a terrible message on this particularly privately leased sign. And what does it say? It says, quote, "Let kids be kids." The subtitle adds, "Stop all medical transitions for minors."
It's one of those things, right, where you have to meet people where they are, and as an elected representative, the mayor will want to be able to reflect the feelings and the sentiments of the people who she represents, because it's ultimately taxpayers paying her job, paying her salary. So she may feel like she needs to speak up for everyone. However, you're also colliding with people's absolute right to free expression, so long as you aren't inciting, direct hatred against an identifiable group in the sense of we should go, blankety blank this group now, or yelling fire in a crowded theater, which will obviously cause a stampede and cause harm. So, the Canadian Constitution Foundation with Christine Van Gyn, they do a really bang-up job of defending the constitutionality of free expression. They really walk this line. I would bet that this will eventually wind up with a massive court challenge.
Again, though, Michelle, like it shouldn't have to get to that. Now, if this ad said, we've got to attack and was, promoting hate and or promoting violence, okay. But again, it's not. But we have become so super hyper sensitive on this that we can't actually even have discussions.
That's exactly what I would have reiterated, Alex. So this is a very, very slippery slope. And, I would be very curious to see what is actually written in black and white from the city's perspective of what you can say unleased city property. What are those actual things? And you better be careful, because once you open this can of worms, when and if you want to be an advocate or you as a city want to promote something, you're going to have to be mindful that you also walk this walk. And so, I think that this billboard is not on the hate speech side of things at all. I don't think there's anything hateful about it. I think it is an opinion. And I think that is where society has hit this bizarre place where politicians have also been thrown into the mix of all of a sudden now they're going to navigate or be in the center of a discussion that people are on different sides of the spectrum, and we actually can't solve any problems if we don't talk about them. But I think, to Chris's point, the mayor's trying to make some group happy and not another group happy, and that's leadership. But I mean, I think this is just overstepping for the mayor, to be honest.
Yeah, and they're just very selective with what they think is actual hate and what is hate, right? It's very crazy. But they're very...
It is. And, there's a great example. So in Peterborough, if you saw this viral video going around, there were these young boys in a parking lot.
Yes, I did. I saw them. They were vile. They were vile. Yeah.
Yeah, they were awful. So one of them got charged, and rightly so.
And just so our listeners understand, it was three teenagers taunting, I think, an Indian or some kind of new Canadian family, and they weren't violent. They were just really obnoxious and rude. And if it were my kid, he wouldn't be sitting for a month. But again,
he crossed the line, though, right? Yeah. So he said he said something about we'd kill you, and then it's the N word. Yeah. Like that's where you're crossing into these territories. Sure. That billboard is just a position of like, let's have a conversation. Our kids aren't okay. What's happening? Why are we even in this position? Let's explore other conversations and let's talk about it.
Let me get this one in quickly before I run out of time. But the Canadian Standards Association wants to require that we, Chris, meaning all of us, wear an N95 respirator mask, not those little blue surgical masks, but the full-on face covering at all time when going into any kind of medical facility or, health center. Look, I don't know what data they've got other than like, are you insane? But they insist that this is needed. You say what?
That we need a lot less government, that we need to get back to basics. I'm not kidding. People need to get out of each other's grills, especially coming from the government, because we're flat broke. We can't afford it anymore. And it's really increasing the temperature with a lot of people. Like, people are getting fed up.
Yeah.
So the government needs to calm down.
I really, honestly, it's just, you got to do this, Michelle. You got to do that. And it's like, okay, if you can show me the data that face masks will protect us or living in a bubble will protect us, maybe I'll listen. But again, I don't want to live my life like that. And if this is what we're getting to, I mean, honestly, you're going to get a lot less buy-in as we go down, and a real crisis comes up. And then people are going to be like, I don't care. I don't want to hear
it.
And
I think you've seen, listen, nothing has reproven the point that Canada has COVID PTSD than Tim Houston's approach on banning hiking in the woods. And this mask, we are not healed as a country. We're not okay. And
no one's ever been held to account. No one's had to apologize. We haven't even had inquiries.
Exactly.
Nothing.
Exactly.
Thank you.
And so you can't heal if you don't acknowledge the pain, suffering, and massive uproar you've caused in people's lives. And so when you come out, there's so much distrust in government. And even to your point, Alex, if you said there is science, people are like, I don't even believe that anymore. Mm-hmm. Because to Chris's point, stop it. Stop controlling people. Stop telling people what they and stop talking to them like they're stupid. Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest message I would say that came out of watching the response about, the hiking ban or all of these things. It's like how you deliver the message. It's like, guys, there are a handful of stupid people. They do carry lighters. We can't risk this right now. We haven't even recovered from last year. And also, if you get stuck in the woods, we don't have any resources to help you. Like, totally different delivery other than we'll tell you what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and we're going to tell you what you can do on your own property. And now we're going to tell you where you have to wear a mask.
All right, guys, I'm out of time. That's the playoff music they give you now. It's like the Oscars. I got to thank you for your time, but we'll do it again. Chris Sims, as well as Michelle Ferreri, joining us here on our day's chat.